This bridge was meant to be untouchable, a symbol of power, a symbol of control. But one night changed everything. An explosion. Fire across the sky. The world stopped watching. And Russia faced a question it could not ignore. Today we explain the attack on Russia's iconic Crimea Bridge. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are discussing one of the most shocking moments of the modern Ukraine war. The Crimea Bridge was not just a road. It was a powerful symbol of Russian control over Crimea. Built with massive investment and security, the bridge connected mainland Russia directly to the occupied peninsula. For years, Moscow presented it as untouchable. Russian media showed it as proof of strength and permanence. But war has a way of changing realities very fast. On the day of the attack, the world watched in disbelief. Explosions ripped through a structure many believed could never be hit. Flames rose into the sky. Sections collapsed. Traffic stopped completely. Videos spread across social media within minutes. Governments reacted. Analysts rushed to explain what this meant. The attack was not just physical damage. It was psychological. It sent a message far beyond Crimea. This bridge carried military supplies, fuel, and troops. It also carried political meaning for President Vladimir Putin. That is why the strike shocked audiences everywhere. Supporters of Ukraine saw it as a turning point. Russia called it terrorism. Neutral observers saw escalation. In this video, we will explain how the attack happened, why the bridge mattered so much, and what consequences followed. Stay with us as we break down every angle of this historic moment carefully and clearly. To understand the impact, we must first understand what the Crimea Bridge represents. Officially known as the Kerch Bridge, it is the longest bridge in Europe. Construction began after Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. The project was personally supported by President Putin. When it opened, he drove across it himself. This was not accidental. The bridge symbolized Russia's claim over Crimea. It linked the peninsula directly to Russian territory. Militarily, it was even more important. The bridge became a key supply route for Russian forces. Weapons, ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements crossed it daily. Without it, logistics become slower and more dangerous. Ukraine understood this reality very well. Since the start of the full-scale invasion in 2022, the bridge became a high-value target. Russia knew this too. That is why heavy air defenses, patrol boats, and surveillance systems surrounded it. Moscow repeatedly said the bridge was fully protected. Russian officials claimed it could survive any attack. These statements were meant to reassure the public. But they also increased the shock when the attack succeeded. When images of damage appeared, the symbolic loss was immediate. It showed that even Russia's most protected infrastructure was vulnerable. That realization mattered as much as the physical destruction itself. The attack itself happened suddenly and with dramatic effect. Early reports described a powerful explosion on the roadway section of the bridge. A massive fire followed, fueled by damaged fuel tanks. Parts of the bridge collapsed into the water below. Traffic came to a complete halt. Russian emergency services rushed to the scene. Helicopters dropped water on the flames. Social media footage showed smoke visible from far away. Within hours, Russian authorities confirmed damage, but tried to downplay its scale. Ukraine did not immediately claim responsibility. This silence added to global speculation. Analysts debated whether it was a missile strike, a drone attack, or a vehicle explosion. Later assessments suggested a complex operation. Regardless of the method, the result was clear. The bridge was partially disabled. Rail traffic stopped. Road traffic was restricted. Repair work would take time. For Russia, this created immediate logistical problems. Supplies to southern Ukraine had to be rerouted. Longer routes increased pressure on Russian forces. For Ukraine, the attack demonstrated capability and reach. It showed that distance and defenses were no longer guarantees of safety. International reactions followed quickly. Western media highlighted the strategic impact. Russian state media focused on resilience and recovery. The truth lay somewhere in between. The bridge was not fully destroyed, but it was no longer invincible. That change in perception mattered deeply in the wider war narrative. Politically, the attack hit Moscow at a sensitive moment. President Putin had repeatedly emphasized Crimea as non-negotiable. The bridge was part of that message. Its damage challenged the image of control. Russian officials condemned the strike strongly. They labeled it an act of terrorism. Security measures across Russia were increased. Investigations were launched immediately. At the same time, Ukraine framed the event differently. Ukrainian voices described the bridge as a legitimate military target. From their perspective, it was used to support an invasion. International law experts debated this point publicly. Some argued the bridge had dual civilian and military use. Others focused on proportionality and intent. The discussion highlighted how complex modern warfare has become. Beyond legal debates, public reaction was intense. In Ukraine, many celebrated the event as symbolic justice. In Russia, reactions ranged from anger to disbelief. Some questioned how such a protected site could be hit. Others blamed intelligence failures. The attack also affected global opinion. It reminded the world that the war was far from static. Frontlines were not the only battlefields. Infrastructure, logistics, and symbols were equally important. This shift forced governments and analysts to reassess assumptions. The bridge attack was no longer just news. It became a case study in modern conflict strategy and information warfare. From a military perspective, the consequences were serious but not decisive. Russia quickly began repairs. Temporary routes were opened. Ferry services increased. Within weeks, partial traffic resumed. This showed Russian resilience and resources. However, the vulnerability remained. Every repair required protection. Every shipment became a potential risk. Ukrainian forces gained leverage. They did not need to destroy the bridge completely. Damaging it periodically could create constant pressure. This strategy aligns with modern asymmetric warfare. Instead of one massive blow, repeated disruptions wear down the opponent. The bridge also became a constant concern for Russian planners. Resources that could be used elsewhere had to be assigned to defense. Air defense systems were repositioned. Naval patrols increased. This redistribution mattered. Meanwhile, Ukraine gained a morale boost. Successful long-range strikes strengthened domestic confidence. They also signal capability to international partners. Supporters see results. Critics reconsider doubts. The bridge attack fit into this broader picture. It was not an isolated event. It was part of a campaign targeting supply lines and infrastructure. While the war continued on many fronts, the psychological battlefield expanded. Control was no longer measured only in territory. It was measured in perception, confidence, and uncertainty. Media coverage played a major role in shaping reactions. Within minutes, videos spread across platforms. Some were verified. Others were exaggerated or fake. This information flood made clarity difficult. Russian outlets emphasized recovery and stability. Ukrainian-aligned channels highlighted damage and symbolism. International media tried to balance both views. Headlines focused on shock and surprise. The phrase "iconic bridge" appeared repeatedly. This framing amplified the emotional impact. Social media users turned the event into memes, debates, and arguments. For many viewers far from the conflict, this was their first close look at the bridge. Images matter in war. A single image can change perception more than 1,000 words. The burning bridge did exactly that. It challenged assumptions about safety and control. Governments also used careful language. Western officials avoided direct praise or blame. They focused on escalation risks. Russia accused outside intelligence services of involvement. These claims were denied. The lack of clear attribution added to tension. Uncertainty became part of the story. In modern conflicts, information itself is a weapon. The Crimea Bridge attack showed how physical events and information battles are inseparable. Winning one without the other is no longer enough. Long-term, the bridge attack changed calculations on both sides. For Russia, it highlighted the need for deeper defenses. Protecting infrastructure became as important as holding territory. This required money, manpower, and time. For Ukraine, it demonstrated that strategic depth could be challenged. Even heavily guarded targets were reachable. This knowledge influences planning and confidence. Allies also took note. Military assistance discussions began to include long-range capabilities more openly. Public opinion in some countries shifted. Support for Ukraine increased in certain regions. Others worried about escalation. The bridge became a reference point in debates. Analysts used it to discuss red lines and deterrence. If such a symbolic target could be hit, what came next? At the same time, the event did not end the war. It did not collapse Russian defenses. It did not force negotiations. Its power was symbolic and strategic, not decisive. Understanding this balance is important. Overstating its impact creates false expectations. Understating it ignores real consequences. The truth sits in between. The Crimea Bridge attack was a moment that reshaped narratives, not borders. And narratives matter deeply in prolonged conflicts. Another important aspect is the human dimension. The bridge is used by civilians as well. Families, workers, and travelers rely on it. During the attack, casualties were reported. Lives were disrupted. This reminds us that infrastructure targets affect ordinary people. War decisions carry human costs beyond strategy. Both sides use narratives to justify actions, but civilians often pay the price. This reality complicates moral judgments. It also fuels anger and fear. Russian citizens saw the attack as a threat to normal life. Ukrainians saw the bridge as a tool of occupation. These opposing views are difficult to reconcile. International audiences must recognize this complexity. Simplistic narratives fail to capture lived experiences. The bridge connects not only land but emotions and identities. That is why its damage resonated so strongly. It touched history, politics, and daily life at once. Understanding these layers helps explain why the event remains relevant long after repairs began. As time passes, the Crimea Bridge attack will likely be studied for years. Military academies will analyze it. Media scholars will examine coverage. Historians will place it within broader conflict timelines. It represents how modern wars target symbols as much as forces. It also shows how technology changes possibilities. Drones' intelligence and coordination allow smaller actors to strike bigger targets. Defenses evolve, but vulnerabilities remain. The bridge stands repaired, but its meaning has changed. It is no longer just a symbol of strength. It is also a reminder of risk. Every crossing now carries memory. That psychological shift cannot be undone. For audiences watching from afar, the event serves as a reminder that war is dynamic. What seems stable today can change overnight. Infrastructure once considered safe can become frontline targets. This understanding shapes future expectations. The bridge attack was not the end of a story. It was a chapter in an ongoing conflict that continues to evolve. In conclusion, the attack on Russia's iconic Crimea Bridge was a defining moment. It combined strategy, symbolism, and shock in a single event. The bridge survived, but its image did not. It exposed vulnerabilities and reshaped narratives. It affected military planning, political messaging, and public perception. Most importantly, it reminded the world that no symbol is immune in modern warfare. As the conflict continues, events like this will keep influencing outcomes beyond the battlefield. Understanding them helps us understand the war itself. Thank you for watching this full breakdown. If you found this analysis useful, make sure to like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more clear and factual war explainers. Share this video so others can understand what really happened. And comment below with your thoughts on how this event changed the conflict. Your support helps the channel grow and continue delivering in-depth content.